to do something for our mom. And so we did something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue for her.
We got you some stuff.
Okay. Welcome back to Glow Gossips USA, the channel where reality television stops being entertainment and becomes explosive truth. If you thought Sister Wives was just about family drama, think again, because tonight we take you inside a courtroom where the walls themselves seem to shake with secrets. This isn't just television gossip, this is the battlefield where reputations, marriages, and freedom itself are on the line. And right now, the spotlight burns hotter on Kody and Robyn Brown than it ever did on TLC's cameras. The bailiff's voice thundered like a war drum. All rise! The words cracked through the air, slicing off whispers and gasps from reporters and spectators. Every single person rose as one, wooden chairs scraping like a storm of swords. The courtroom felt alive, humming with nervous anticipation. At the elevated mahogany bench, polished to perfection, the judge appeared like destiny itself cloaked in black. Her robe swept across the floor, and the air turned heavy as if even oxygen dared not breathe without her permission. At the defense table, Kody Brown was not the bold, chest-thumping patriarch fans remembered. Gone was the smug grin and commanding tone. Instead, a man unraveling sat hunched, jaw tight, eyes flicking left and right like a cornered wolf. Photographers pounced on his unease, cameras flashing, every click carving away what little composure he had left. Beside him, Robyn Brown clutched her purse so tightly her knuckles blanched. Her dark hair draped across her face like a shield, but nothing could protect her from the piercing stares. Her lips moved, whispering fragments of prayers or excuses, no one could tell which. Her trembling fingers tapped the leather bag, counting invisible beads of dread. This was not reality TV. This was not TLC editing room magic. This was real life, and today, truth was not a storyline. Today, truth was a blade. For years, tabloids had whispered about shady money trails, hidden accounts, and manipulative power games. But whispers don't shatter empires. Allegations do. And today, those whispers had hardened into words as heavy as thunder. Financial fraud, obstruction of justice, hidden assets. Every syllable of those charges weighed on the air like storm clouds before lightning. The judge settled into her seat, her stern eyes glinting through rimmed glasses, cold and precise. She scanned the courtroom, pausing at the Browns before slowly turning her gaze toward Meri Brown and Janelle Brown. They sat together, dignified, their quiet presence a storm of its own. All may be seated, she commanded. The echo of wooden chairs filled the silence like a crashing cymbal, and then the hush returned. Kody bent low toward Robyn, whispering through clenched teeth, "Keep calm. This is an act. They have nothing." But his quivering voice betrayed him. Fear was already carving cracks across his mask of confidence. Across the aisle, Meri sat upright, regal in her silence. She radiated strength born from years of betrayal and heartbreak. Silence had become her weapon. Janelle leaned back with folded arms, a faint, knowing smirk tugging at her lips. For once, they weren't the ones on trial, and they both knew justice was finally catching up. The prosecutor rose, slamming binders onto the podium with a heavy thump that echoed like a gavel. His voice cut sharp. Your Honor, today we expose the systematic fraud committed by Kody and Robyn Brown. Evidence will prove hidden funds, manipulated accounts, and deliberate defiance of lawful orders. This is not hearsay. This is fact. Gasps exploded through the room. Reporters scribbled, cameras snapped like gunfire. Kody flushed red, fists twitching as if ready to pound the table and demand control. But one icy glare from the judge froze him still. He muttered under his breath, "They're twisting everything." They don't understand. Robyn's hand clutched his, shaking, tears pooling in her eyes, her reality TV mask cracking apart under the weight of truth. The judge leaned forward, hands folded, her words slicing through the room. "Mr. Brown, Mrs. Brown, there are no producers here. No editors. No cameras. Only evidence, testimony, and the law. Do you understand me?" Robyn's trembling, "Yes, Your Honor," barely reached the air. Kody gave a stiff nod, though his clenched jaw screamed defiance. Then came the dagger. "Exhibit A," the prosecutor declared, raising a stack of papers. Bank statements from concealed accounts under Mr. Brown's name, undisclosed to the IRS and this court, totaling hundreds of thousands of dollars. The gallery gasped as though the floor had split open. Kody's chest heaved, his breathing ragged, desperate to twist the narrative once more. But this time there would be no editing, no camera tricks, only the brutal, uncut truth. shortcut truth.
And it's because of the nuance of a breakup. And I don't know what this is going to lead to. I don't know what else is going to go on.
The weight of the judge's words pressed down like iron shackles, holding Kody Brown motionless in his chair. His bravado, the same swagger that once commanded his wives, his children, and his TV empire, was crumbling before everyone's eyes. Beside him, Robyn's knuckles turned ghost white as she clutched the edge of the table. Her lips parted, but no words came out. Only desperation. Across the room, Meri and Janelle did not move. They did not gasp. They did not whisper. They didn't even blink. Their silence was deliberate, louder than any scream could have been. For once, the chaos wasn't theirs to shoulder. For once, they weren't the ones trying to mop up the destruction left behind by Kody's endless excuses. Their calm was a weapon, and it cut deeper than Kody's anger ever could. The judge tapped her pen 3 times against the bench. The sharp rhythm cut through the silence like a blade. Her voice followed, sharper still. "Mr. Brown, Mrs. Brown, you have stood in this courtroom before vowing cooperation. Yet here we are again. Lies. Concealment. Do you think this court is a fool?" The words cracked like lightning, echoing off every polished wall. Kody leaned into the microphone, his voice trembling as he fought to mask his fury. "Your Honor, I've never disrespected this court. Everything I've done has been for one reason: to protect my family. I am not a criminal. I am a father." The judge raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. "Protecting your family is not a justification for dishonesty. You invoke protection. I observe concealment." Her gavel struck once, boom like a gunshot. Kody's hand slammed against the defense table in frustration, the sound jolting Robyn, who jumped beside him. The bailiff's hand hovered near his holster, eyes locked on Kody in a silent warning. "You will not raise your voice in this courtroom again." The judge snapped, her gavel crashing down a second time. The fight drained from Kody's posture, his eyes darting toward the exit like a trapped man plotting escape. But there was none. "Yes, Your Honor," he muttered, his voice hollow. For the first time, Kody looked broken. Tears spilled freely down Robyn's cheeks as she leaned into her microphone. Her voice cracked, desperation dripping from every syllable. "We never meant harm. We only wanted to protect our children. Everything we did, we thought it was the best way." Every camera in the room zoomed in, capturing each trembling word, every pleading glance. But the judge's expression remained carved from stone. "Mrs. Brown," she replied coldly, "justice has no tears. You chose deception over honesty. That is not protection. That is obstruction." The gavel thundered again, silencing even the whispers of the press. Reporters clutched their pens tighter, leaning in. The prosecutor rose once more, his tone sharp enough to draw blood. "Your Honor, this is not an isolated mistake. This is a pattern. For years, the Browns have offered half-truths whenever pressed for transparency. Exhibit A was just the beginning. Evidence will prove these funds were hidden to evade accountability. This is not a family issue. This is a criminal issue." The room buzzed like a hive of hornets. Reporters whispered into microphones. Cameras flashed mercilessly, feeding the frenzy. Across the aisle, Robyn's tear-streaked face stood in painful contrast to Meri and Janelle's statuesque calm. Inside, their hearts thundered, but not from fear, from vindication, from relief. For once, the storm wasn't theirs to weather. This time, the storm had finally turned on Kody and Robyn. And yet, this was only the beginning. The trial had just begun. Meri's eyes never strayed from Kody. For decades, she had carried his betrayals in silence, endured his favoritism and cruel disregard for her heart. She had believed his promises once. She had forgiven his sins, carried his burdens, and walked beside him through storms she never caused. But now, in this courtroom, beneath the fluorescent glare and polished wood, she saw him for what he truly was. A man cornered by his own lies, shrinking beneath the weight of justice. Something long dormant stirred inside her. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't joy. It was closure, the first taste of it after years of pain. Beside her, Janelle allowed herself a small, almost imperceptible smile. She had walked away long before this trial, breaking free from his suffocating grip, his hollow leadership, his endless cycle of disappointment. She had chosen freedom, and now, in this courtroom, she watched the man who once held their lives in his fist finally crumble. For years, Meri had carried the whispers of guilt, the weight of broken promises, the endless echoes of excuses. But here, watching Kody Brown sit powerless, his ego dissolving in real time under the crushing weight of truth, something shifted. She glanced at Janelle, and in that silent moment, their eyes locked in a wordless pact. Justice had finally arrived. The gavel cracked like thunder, slicing the air into stillness so sharp it almost hurt to breathe. The judge's voice, unyielding and merciless, rolled across the courtroom like a storm. Mr. Brown, Mrs. Brown, this court will not be played. It will not be moved by shouting nor swayed by tears. The law demands truth, and you have refused it. These are not mistakes. These are deliberate acts of fraud and obstruction. Do you comprehend the gravity of your position? For the first time in his life, Kody Brown had no words. His lips parted, closed, opened again, until all that slipped out was a broken whisper. Yes, Your Honor. Robyn's hands shook so violently that she nearly dropped the tissue she clutched. Mascara streaked down her cheeks like black rivers, her trembling plea barely audible. Yes, Your Honor. The prosecutor moved forward with deadly precision, lifting another thick folder from his desk and dropping it onto the podium with a thud that reverberated like a drumbeat of doom. Your Honor, he said slowly, deliberately, we move now to Exhibit B. The very words sent ripples through the gallery. Reporters leaned forward, pens scratching, cameras cocking. The air was thick, suffocating with anticipation. Before he could continue, the gavel struck again, sharp and final. The judge's voice cut through the noise like steel. This court has heard enough excuses, enough half-truths, enough lies. Based on the evidence and your repeated disregard for this court's orders, I am issuing an immediate order for your arrest. Both of you. The silence shattered. The gallery erupted in gasps, reporters nearly toppling over one another as flashes exploded like lightning. Kody shot to his feet, his chair screeching across the marble floor, his face twisted in rage and disbelief. You can't do this, he roared, his voice raw. I'm not a criminal. I'm a father of 18 children. I built a family. I built a life. Sit down, the judge ordered, her voice slicing through his fury like a blade. But Kody did not obey. His fist slammed the table, rattling glasses and scattering papers. This is persecution. You're turning my life into a circus because I live differently. Because I believed in something bigger. The bailiff moved forward, hand at his holster, but the judge raised her palm, stopping him. Her gaze locked on Kody, unflinching. Mr. Brown, she said, her tone cloaked in fire, your arrogance does not exempt you from the law. Sit or you will be forced down. For the first time in decades, Kody's bravado cracked. He saw the officers at the door, their hands resting on their belts, their eyes cold, prepared. The inevitability sank into him like stone. The fight drained out of his body. Bitter and broken, he collapsed back into his chair, his face flushed crimson, his chest heaving like a cornered beast. Beside him, Robyn clung to his arm, sobbing uncontrollably. Please, Your Honor, she cried, her voice breaking apart. Don't do this. We're not criminals. We're parents. Our children need us. The gavel slammed down with the weight of finality. Enough. This is not about your image. This is not about your children. This is about the law. Officers, take them into custody. The heavy double doors groaned open and 2 officers marched in, boots striking the marble floor like the drumbeat of fate. The spectators pulled back, forming a path. Stand up, sir. Hands behind your back. Kody's eyes went wide. No, you can't. I won't. His words broke apart as the officer's grip snapped around his arm, twisting it behind his back with professional precision. He thrashed violently, but another officer grabbed his other wrist, locking him into place. The metallic click of handcuffs rang out, louder than the gavel, louder than the gasps. It was the sound of power leaving him. You don't understand, Kody shouted, his voice collapsing into something desperate, almost childlike. I did this for my family. But his cries were drowned out by the cold rattle of chains. Ma'am, please stand, an officer said firmly. Robyn shook her head, clutching the table with white knuckles, her sobs tearing through the chamber. No, not me. I didn't do anything, please. I was just following, but the law had no sympathy. And for the first time, so did no one else. Robyn's plea dissolved into sobs as the officer pulled her upright. Her knees buckled, nearly giving way, before the cold bite of steel snapped around her wrists. The metallic click echoed through the chamber, a sound that carried the weight of finality. For one breathtaking moment, the room froze. Kody and Robyn Brown stood shackled, powerless, exposed. The mighty had fallen. Reporters surged like a tidal wave, cameras flashing with blinding fury, voices crashing together in a frenzy of disbelief and triumph. Some gasped in horror, others with grim satisfaction. Across the aisle, Meri and Janelle remained statuesque, their silence as sharp as any verdict. Meri's eyes never left Kody. This was the man who had once promised her forever, who once strutted like a king surrounded by wives and cameras. Now, chains bound his wrists, his crown shattered. Watching him broken, she felt something she hadn't tasted in decades. Release, not triumph. Not spite, but freedom. Beside her, Janelle exhaled softly, the faintest smile curving her lips. She leaned close to Meri, whispering words that sliced through the air like poetry. Poetic, isn't it? Meri didn't answer. She didn't need to. Their silence was louder than words, an unspoken pact that everything had finally changed. The judge's final command cracked through the chamber. Defendants will be remanded without bail. Officers removed them from this courtroom. Chains rattled with every reluctant step as Kody and Robyn were dragged forward. Kody twisted his head wildly toward the gallery, eyes blazing. This isn't over. You'll regret this. All of you will regret this. His roar was swallowed by chaos, by the thunder of shutters, by the rising cries of reporters, by the wave of judgment pressing in on him from every side. Robyn stumbled, her sobs piercing the air like broken glass. She clung to Kody as much as the cuffs allowed, desperate to hold on to the last remnant of control. But the sight was pitiful, far from the carefully crafted image of the favorite wife. This was no queen. This was a woman undone. As they were marched past the spectators' bench, Kody locked eyes with Meri. Time itself seemed to pause. He searched her face for mercy, for softness, for the love she once poured out so freely. But all he found was stone. Meri's lips curved into the faintest smile, honest and merciless. You had it coming. The great wooden doors swung open, and the Browns were dragged out. The clanging of shackles against marble reverberated long after the doors slammed shut. For a heartbeat, silence blanketed the courtroom. Then the storm erupted. Voices collided, reporters shouted over one another, flashes burst like lightning, and the courtroom dissolved into chaos. Outside, the courthouse steps became a battlefield of frenzy. A roaring sea of microphones, cameras, and questions surged like a living beast hungry for spectacle. Reporters pushed, spectators jostled, flashes carved the night into blinding fragments. And in the eye of that storm stood two women, Meri and Janelle. Side by side, their silhouettes rose against the heavy doors that had sealed Kody and Robyn's fate. They did not flinch. They did not bend. They inhaled the chaos like oxygen, lifting themselves higher on the very storm that had once crushed them. Janelle whispered, fragile yet resolute, "It's over." The words carried decades of endurance, betrayal, and disappointment, punctuated at last by the click of Kody's handcuffs. For her, it was closure, a door slammed shut forever. But Meri's eyes were fixed further, beyond the chaos, beyond the scandal. Her voice rose calm and resonant, cutting through the storm like prophecy. No, it's just beginning. The atmosphere shifted instantly. Reporters froze mid-sentence. Pens hung above paper. Even the relentless clicking of cameras stuttered, as though time itself bowed to the gravity of Meri's words. In that moment, everyone understood. This was not simply about Kody and Robyn's downfall. This was about rebirth. About women who had endured humiliation, betrayal, and silence, now standing not as victims, but as victors. The world expected them to crumble, to drown in bitterness. Instead, they stood unbroken, unbent, unafraid. The great sun of Kody's self-made kingdom had collapsed, extinguished in the darkness of his own lies. And now Meri and Janelle rose as stars in their own right, shining brighter than ever before. Behind them, Kody's muffled protests echoed faintly through the halls, angry, desperate, hollow. His authority had evaporated, drowned beneath the rattle of chains and the sobs of Robyn, who trailed like a fallen queen mourning her shattered crown. Together they vanished into the shadows of justice, swallowed by headlines and transcripts, their power reduced to ink and memory. Meri and Janelle did not look back. They didn't need to. The past was gone, sealed behind them with the slamming of a courthouse door. The future stretched wide before them, free, unclaimed, untethered to his name. On the courthouse steps, the press swarmed with questions. Meri, will you write a memoir? Janelle, will you reconcile with Christine? Has Sister Wives come to its final end? Neither answered. Their silence thundered louder than